Hello everybody, this is Kirsten here. Today we are talking about carbohydrates and why eating too low carbohydrate diet can really mess with your reproductive system, can cause you lose your period, can cause you lose your thyroid health, and so on. First, I want to tell you that about 75% of women who come to me with their period issues, because they know that I work with women who have HA, they have been on a low carbohydrate diet. Now it depends on the woman. Sometimes they have been on this low carb diet for 1 to 3 months, and this is when they started seeing issues. And then sometimes they have been doing this for 1 to 2 years. I once worked with a client who had been on a very low carbohydrate diet for 2 years, and then she didn't have her period. She was cold all the time. She was terribly anxious, so anxious all the time. She was losing a lot of hair. Her skin looked like it was very dull, it had no life in it. These are all pretty common signs and symptoms that something is going on in your body. A lot of times it can be caused by a low carbohydrate diet. Just the other day, I was talking to a woman who had been on a low carb diet for about 3 months, and she had taken this plan from a coach who was a guy, and she was eating very low carb diet. I think she was eating about 20 to 30 grams of carbs per day. And of course, the same things happened. Only in 3 months, she lost her period and she started feeling really, really fatigued, and she didn't know why. And she actually asked me, why carbohydrates? Why is it that the carbohydrates are so important for women's health? What is going on? And this video is hopefully going to explain you that. Coming back to these low carb diet plans again, a lot of times they have been put together by men, and low carb tends to work a little bit better for men, but it does not work super well for many women, especially if you're physically active. Honestly, if you eat very low carb diet where you're getting like 20-30 grams of carbs, which is so very extremely low, and then you're doing high intensity training or high volume training, lots of training, and your life is stressful, and then you start getting those negative effects. Your sleep gets worse, which adds another stressor to your life. This is a recipe for disaster. It does not often work for women. Right now, I'm actually enrolled in a macro coaching program. I will be a macro coach soon. And what I really love about this program, that it's not only about fat loss no matter what. We do look at the hormones, we do look at the hormonal response. And one of the topics that we cover there is carbohydrates. How eating too low carbohydrates start messing with our thyroid, and when it starts messing with our thyroid, we also get problems with our menstrual cycle. Eating very low carbohydrate diet makes your thyroid sluggish and slow. It's not able to produce the right amount of thyroid hormones anymore, which is the reason why you're losing your hair, getting insomnia, getting constipation, and feeling extremely fatigued. And of course, your stress hormones are high, your cortisol is high as well, because your body is stressed out because it's not getting enough food, it's not getting enough carbohydrates. And when the body stress response is high, when the cortisol production is high, then that is often going to take away from your sex hormone production. That's why you get problems with your menstrual cycle as well. Now, a lot of women are really, really afraid of carbs because they've been told that it's all sugar, it's all the same thing. A Snickers bar is the same thing as eating butternut squash, but it is not the same thing. Those carbohydrates are different. Now, regular sugar, white sugar, or the ones that are found in Snickers bars, they can have negative effect on your insulin. So if you have problems with insulin sensitivity, which by the way, I do have, so then you may have to be a little bit more aware. If you have watched my video or listened to my podcast where I talk about how I got rid of my period pain, what happened was that I realized that I was eating too high sugar, too much sugar, and I figured it out using glucometer. I saw that my blood sugar was all over the place, so I had to start eliminating the sweets that I was eating. And so interestingly, in just 4 weeks, I got rid of my period pain. My next cycle came without pain, and the next 6 ones also came without pain. So this can be very, very important for some people to pay attention to. I'm not saying that don't ever eat regular sugar, but I'm saying that you should be careful and you should be aware of some of the potential effects it has on the body. And it's not to say that I never eat sugar. I definitely do. We just got back from 3-day hiking and camping trip, and I definitely had some s'mores. I had an ice cream bar, but these are not the things that I have on a regular basis because I just know that they are not good for my body. So if you have problems with insulin sensitivity, I don't recommend eating super high sugar foods. Now, vegetables and fruits are definitely different. Some people are also really, really afraid of fruits. And again, if you're very, very sensitive sensitive, then you may have to watch it a little bit. Don't overdo it. But if fruits are eaten in reasonable amounts, then they can actually improve your insulin sensitivity. So don't be afraid of fruit, and don't say that it's the same thing as a Snickers bar, because this is just not the truth. If you have problems with insulin sensitivity, if your blood sugar tends to be all over the place, one of the things that you can do if you want to still enjoy some fruit, you can eat it with a source of protein and fat, and then sprinkle some cinnamon on top. It's super, super yummy, and it does help you to keep your blood sugar a little bit better under control. What about vegetables? It's totally okay to eat vegetables. Please don't stop eating them. A lot of times I see women's food log when they send them over to me, and I see only high protein and high fat. I see things like chicken and beef and even liver, and then ghee and butter and oil, and that's about it. So there's just protein and there's just fat, but there's no vegetables, because they are so afraid that these are carbohydrates, and then these carbohydrates are going to make them insulin resistant, which is not true. If you're not getting those carbohydrates, you are going to run into a lot of health issues that I already mentioned before, and I will talk about in a second again. Also, oats, brown rice, quinoa, things like that, whole grains like that can be very, very healthy for you too. So don't be afraid of eating them. Why are carbohydrates so important then? First of all, they are the essential source of energy. They're the first source of energy that your body wants and needs. They also help you to keep your immune system strong. Carbs support your thyroid health. Like I said before, the macro coaching program where I am right now, this is what we're learning there. It's important to eat enough carbohydrates to keep the thyroid healthy. And when the thyroid is healthy, then a lot of other systems in the body are healthy too. If the thyroid is unhealthy, then many other systems, including your reproductive system, may be unhealthy as well. And in this program, we're even talking about, in addition to keeping the carbohydrates high enough for you, it's also helpful to have a couple of higher carbohydrate days in the week to make sure that the thyroid gets replenished. Eating enough carbohydrates is important to prevent the cortisol spikes. As you know, cortisol is the stress hormone. High cortisol is not ideal. High cortisol can mess with your sex hormone production, just like I mentioned earlier. It can also cause sleep issues. If your cortisol is high because you have been dieting really, really hard and keeping the calories and carbohydrates really, really low, eventually you will start gaining weight actually. And carbohydrates are also important because they are rich in fiber, which is so important for your gut health. So again, coming back to those who are eating this like very high fat and very high protein diet, a lot of times they have a lot of issues with their guts. They are not going to a bathroom, they have terrible gas and bloating. And part of the reason may be because they are not getting enough fiber, because they are not eating vegetables. And when we're not getting enough fiber, it's really hard to poop. Fiber is also important for eliminating excess estrogen from the body, so you don't become estrogen dominant. Good sources of carbohydrates for that are kale and Brussels sprouts and broccoli and cauliflower. And when you eat them cooked, you can make sure that the excess estrogen gets eliminated from your body. And once more, if you're eating low carb, you can see your thyroid getting really sluggish, which can then cause hair loss, insomnia, constipation, feeling cold all the time. When you stop sweating, these are all signs that your thyroid may not be functioning properly. And then, of course, this is directly linked to your period issues as well. My advice for you today would be to not restrict carbohydrates. Please don't do those 20 or 30 grams of carbs per day diets, because they will be very, very stressful on the body. And instead, I would tell you to work with somebody who knows what they're doing, who helps you to figure out the right amount of macronutrients for you and for your diet. Please don't go on those super low carb diets, because they generally don't end very well for a lot of women. So be careful with that. That's all I got for you today. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you again.